Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Boston University. This is one of those typical sunny Boston days. It's like this pretty much every day of the year, so you're getting to see Boston how it really is as opposed to how it was last night. I want to thank you all for coming here today. I want to thank those of you who've traveled, in some cases, long journeys from Alaska, from Germany, to join this conversation. I also particularly want to thank, at the outset, people who have helped us put this meeting together. Welcoming America and Partnership for the New American Economy. And I'd also particularly like to thank Shana Singh Huey, who worked with Mayor Dean in creating the first Office of New Americans in Nashville and has been a tremendous help to us in putting this event together. The purpose of this meeting is to bring all of you together to share experience, to talk about what has worked and what has not worked in bringing about more inclusive cities that are truly welcoming to immigrant communities. As many of you know, the Initiative on Cities was co-created by myself and by the late and much missed Mayor Menino. Mayor Menino was renowned during his time as mayor of Boston as somebody who truly cared about inclusion and welcoming and representing all parts of our community. And I know that he would be thrilled to be part of this event were he here and would take great pride in the work of the Initiative on Cities in fostering a more inclusive atmosphere in cities around the country. We know that this is the age of cities. Over half the world's population now lives in cities. Cities account for a very high proportion of the economic activity and dynamism that is going on in the regions and nations of the world. But the nature of those cities is also changing. We live in a world of huge population movements, where both in countries with a tradition of immigration like the United States or Canada, but also in countries, as we heard last night, Germany, the United Kingdom, France, without that tradition of mass immigration, very large numbers of people are moving in. And it is in their interests, but and equally importantly, in the interests of their host societies, that this process of accommodation, integration, and mutual respect moves forward smoothly. So this is an incredible challenge for cities, but we know it's also an incredible opportunity. Immigrants bring with them imagination, drive, initiative. They wouldn't have moved if they didn't have those characteristics. And the cities that do the best job of including immigrants in their communities and providing a welcoming atmosphere will be the cities that do best economically. I've mentioned that there are challenges in this process. We want to learn about the obstacles you've faced, the ones you've conquered, and the ones that you're still working to overcome. We want to give you a chance to speak with your peers and share strategies for making all of our cities more welcoming. Now I'm happy to introduce our next speaker, Karl Dean, who served as mayor of Nashville for 8 years and was forced to leave office, not by the people, but by the law, term limits requiring him to step down after 8 extremely successful years. We've had the pleasure of having Karl with us for the last semester here at Boston University as mayor in residence. And we invite people to be mayor in residence who have been distinguished mayors with great accomplishments to their name. And this is certainly true of Karl. Karl embodied that combination of promoting dynamism and success for the city and tolerance that we talked about last night as going so well together. Karl took risks to promote economic dynamism, for example, making a big commitment to renovating the convention center and making Nashville more of a destination city for business travelers. But he also took a very firm stand early on against an English-only proposal that would have banned the use of languages other than English in official documents, thus making life harder for immigrant communities. And so I think that combination of promoting economic and other dynamism in the city, but also creating the tolerant atmosphere, the welcoming atmosphere for immigrants, is precisely the combination that I've suggested is the key to success for our cities. Under his leadership, Nashville welcomed tens of thousands of immigrants. A writer for the Tennessean recently dubbed it the New Ellis Island, a nickname based on the fact that the number of foreign-born residents has risen from 2% to nearly 12%. We were honored to have Mayor Dean with us last semester as mayor in residence, teaching a course on cities and urban leadership to our undergraduates. And we thank him for both inspiring and helping to organize this event. Now, please join me in welcoming Mayor Dean to the stage.
Well, thank you, Graham, and I am indeed happy to be here. I spent, because of mechanical problems, about 6.5 hours in the Nashville airport yesterday, which is a real useful use of time, but I got a lot of reading done. I want to thank Catherine and Graham and Patricia and Connor and all the team at the Initiative on Cities for all the work that went into planning this event, and Shauna, who thought she was done working with me, stepped up when I asked her for help on this. You know, the fact that we've got about 25 cities represented here is a real testament to their success, but also a testament to the importance of this conversation. And I would be remiss if I didn't say a special thanks to another representative from my own city of Nashville. Vanessa Luzon is here. Vanessa is the new head of the New Americans office in Nashville, and she's sitting here in the back, and she's working with Mayor Barry, who's doing a fantastic job. I had appointed Vanessa to serve as a member of my New Americans Advisory Council years ago, and now she's running the office, which I think is a great testament to her. I'm very proud of her. As mayor in residence with Boston University, I spoke about my interest in this area, and it really comes from my time as mayor. When I look back, I was mayor from 2007 to just this past year in 2015, and this issue just boomed during that time period. And it really went from being sort of a very difficult issue for city officials to deal with to an issue that I think may not be easy to deal with, but an issue that doing the right thing and what the right thing is was pretty clear. And Nashville as a city has gone from being sort of nervous about immigration to being a city that I think embraces immigration and embraces diversity. And the best way for me to illustrate this is just to talk about two events that occurred during my time as mayor. The first, Graham already mentioned, which is the English-only vote, which occurred in 2009. I had become mayor in 2007, and in 2009, the early part of that year, a group of people had succeeded in getting enough signatures to get a petition on the ballot for a referendum, and it was really the only thing on the ballot at the time, which would have amended our city charter, which is sort of like our constitution, to say that Nashville could only do business in the English language. And if you read it the way it's written, it would mean that if you had a person in your office, like I had my deputy mayor is fluent in German, he wouldn't be able, according to that law, to speak to German visitors or German government officials or business people in German. It would also mean, I think what is intended to do, would mean that the city of Nashville would not be able to provide services unless federally mandated to individuals who spoke Spanish or Arabic. And given the atmosphere politically at that time, it was pretty clear it was sort of a mean-spirited anti-immigrant measure, and it got on the ballot. And so we were very, very worried about it. We thought, given the politics of the state at that point, that there was a good chance that it could pass. But what happened was a really great coalition of people came together, folks who were in the Chamber of Commerce, folks who were working with labor unions, you had religious leaders, you had the ACLU, you had lots of people saying this is not who we are. And we put on a campaign, aggressively worked against it, and we beat it by what I would call a landslide. And from that moment on, the city has never really looked back. You can't really find anybody who says they voted for it anymore. And the people who proposed it, actually a lot of it was out-of-state money coming in, but the people locally who proposed it are all backing away as fast as they possibly can. And since then, we've embraced the idea that immigration is good for Nashville, that it is part of the city's boom, that it is part of the thing that makes our city much more diverse and interesting. It adds to our culture. It has helped us economically, as I mentioned. And so the next big moment, I think, came in 2014 when President Obama came to Nashville when he was working on immigration issues to put a spotlight on Nashville as a city that was doing the right things. And when the president comes to your city, it's a big deal. And that was a great moment, and I think it showed the progress that Nashville has made. My attitude toward immigration has always been this, that when I think about immigrants, and we're a country of immigrants, all of us are from somewhere. But when someone comes to the United States, it's sort of like my experience with Southwest Airlines yesterday. You are free to move about the country. And so when somebody comes to the United States to live here, they have lots of choices. They can live anywhere. And when they pick your city as a place where they're going to live the American dream, where they're going to pursue success in their lives, where they're going to do everything they can to guarantee their future, where they're going to be part of a community, where they're going to put down their roots, and where they're going to raise their children and hope for the best for them, and they pick your city, that's the highest compliment that anybody can ever give your city. So I think this is a critical issue, and I am so happy that so many people are here, and I look forward to a very productive conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mardine. Now I'm pleased to introduce our next speaker, Alejandra Guillen. Alejandra has served as director of the Boston Mayor's Office of Immigrant Advancement since 2014, where she helps lead the City of Boston's efforts to give newcomers and residents from diverse cultural backgrounds the tools and support that they need to succeed. Please join me in welcoming Alejandra to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. All right. So first of all, welcome to Boston on behalf of Mayor Walsh. I want to thank the BU Initiative on Cities for hosting us, and I want to thank you all for being here. It's really encouraging to see all of you here, and as Mayor Dean was speaking, I was, one of the things that I was thinking about is this week we had an interesting week in terms of a new policy or an old policy that has been reinstated where our state police can now honor ICE detainers, where before they weren't under the previous administration, that policy had been reversed. And so it's an interesting dynamic, and as I'm sure many of you often face, is to be a city open and welcome immigrants in a state that sometimes is not always the same. And so, and I think that this is, and it's not necessarily a partisan issue. I think people look at Massachusetts and see us as the bastion of liberalism and progressiveness, particularly because of gay marriage and in other policies. But if we look at every single budget season, we have organizations like MITA that was founded by Ali Noorani, who you're going to hear from in a few minutes, oftentimes have to fight against anti-immigrant amendments, oftentimes led by Democrats. So being a welcoming city, being a city that's open to immigrants is a part of who Boston is, as Director Graham mentioned. Mayor Menino was the founder of this institute, but also what was the Mayor's Office of New Bostonians. And now under Mayor Walsh, we have really continued to lead the charge in making sure that all of our immigrants are welcome here in the city, because we see that immigrants are a strength. A little bit about Boston. 27% of Boston's city is city's residents are foreign born. And it's incredibly diverse. So if you look at the top three groups are Dominican, Chinese, and Haitian. But even all those three together don't even make 30%. So there are about 120 languages that are spoken in our city. And although 27% of our residents are foreign born, if you look at the Boston Public Schools, half of the students have at least one foreign-born parent. So when you talk about, and this is a work that I'm sure all of you do, is that when you talk about immigrant families, it's both those that are foreign-born, but also those that are children of the foreign-born who also grow up in an immigrant setting. In Boston, immigrants own 8,800 small businesses, and they spend over $4 billion annually, creating 52,000 jobs. And Mayor Walsh is, one, he's a son of immigrants, so this is an issue very near and dear to his heart, but he also sees that immigrants are the vitality of our city. They are the sustainability of our city. So today we're at an event called Leading Immigrant Inclusion in Urban America, and having had the pleasure of knowing, having met many of you before in our different conferences, whether it be, Welcoming America or NIC conferences. I know all the work that we all do to lead inclusion efforts, and the work that we're doing in Boston is very much impacted by the work that you have all done. So a lot of these things might sound familiar to you. Some of them we might have stolen from your city. So we have our Immigrant Information Corners, which are launched in all Boston Public Libraries this year. Every single Boston Public Library has a section that is information about citizenship, other types of immigration relief, and also we are partnering with the Office of Financial Empowerment to bring that aspect as well. We just recently launched a city task force on foreign trained professionals, and we'll explore how city government can support residents that have had workforce training or higher education from outside the United States. So we've just recently brought together providers, state officials, city officials, workforce development, community colleges, to look at this issue that is very much often seen as a state or federal issue because of the recertification, and see what role can the city play in advancing the skills, or not advancing skills, advancing these immigrants that come with high skills. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to commission a report so that we have, there's been great data that has already come out, and we want to do really Boston-specific report on, so we can really balance what the needs are along with what the immigration trends are. And we've also been working to connect I'm sorry, the light is so bright. We've also been working to connect, sorry, because it's driving me crazy. Working to connect the issues of immigrant integration and inclusion along with race equity lens. So Boston, as many of you may know, that has a long history of conflict, of race conflict, in particular that of busing. And it has very much always been been seen as a black and white issue, right? And that's the populations that when that was happening in the 60s and 70s, it was a black and white city. With the influx of immigrants and the growth of immigrants now making up 27%, how do we now combine the work on race equity and combine that with the immigrant integration and empowerment, and seeing the role that immigrants play in promoting race equity across the city? So we have a immigrant integration and empowerment fellow through a generous grant from the Bar Foundation, who's with us for 3 years, who is working on that. And DACA DAPA. So the dean, Mayor Dean mentioned that in 2014, the president was traveling, talking about his executive orders. And so we have coordinated 21 organizations to work on DACA DAPA, hoping for a positive result in June from the Supreme Court, but also understanding that should it not go our way, there are other forms of relief that our immigrants might be able to access. And so we're working with 21 organizations, making sure we're doing outreach, making sure we're doing education against scams. All right, so I think that's it. It's really, a pleasure to be here today. Like I mentioned, a lot of the work that we do is very much because of the work that you do, and the ability for us to gather here today is hugely important because many of these initiatives have come out of things that we've learned from other conferences that we've been to. So I thank you all for being here. I welcome you to Boston. Hopefully you can stay a little bit today. It is beautiful out there. So thank you.
Thank you, Alejandra. I was reminded when you mentioned the 21 organizations that you network with, and in the discussion by Mr. Pavkovich last night about organizations that help with immigrant inclusion in his city, of the time that I finally became a United States citizen. It had taken 3 attempts and finally achieved only through the intervention of the United States representative for where I then lived. And I was in a pretty foul mood by the time I was sworn in. But then I turned up for the ceremony, and there was nothing about the ceremony that really moved me. But what moved me that day was the presence of the League of Women Voters, who were helping people who didn't speak perfect English, who were giving out donuts and coffee. And I thought, looking at those volunteers, that this is the society that I want to be part of. And so I think that I've always since had a very sharp awareness of the importance not only of the great work that you people in government do, but of the importance of the work that volunteers like that do in creating welcoming environments for immigrants.